Hello, beloveds, and welcome to another beautiful episode of the Reclamation. I am Paula Collins, your Magdalene priestess, sound healer, Reiki master, your guide, your sister, and a fellow traveler on this sacred journey of remembrance. Today, we are going to walk together through one of life's most misunderstood yet most holy passages, the death portal. This episode is not about grief, though grief will walk with us, of course. It's about remembering death as the sacred rebirth that it truly is. It's this moment when the soul steps beyond the veil and returns home to the divine. Excuse me. I want to begin this with a beautiful invocation, and I'm calling it the sacred return. So take a moment to close down your eyes and take a breath. Maybe place one hand over your heart center and listen to the words. I call now to the guardians of the veil, to the keepers of the threshold between worlds. I call to the mothers who have wept and the daughters who have remembered. And I call to the grandmothers whose bones still hum with the songs of creation. Come, be with us now. I call to the ancestors who have walked before us, who have known the pain of loss and the beauty of release. Stand beside us as we remember the sacred truth that death is not the end, but a doorway home. I call to the souls who linger in love, those crossing, those guiding, and those waiting. May they be wrapped in peace. May they be carried by the wings of angels and the hands of the Holy Mother. And I call upon the great midwives of spirit, Hecate, the keeper of the crossroads, Caradwan, the mistress of the cauldron of rebirth, Persephone, who transcends and returns, teaching us of the rhythm of transformation. I call upon Magdalene, the essence of the true divine feminine, who is always with us, within our hearts, within our souls, and within our wombs. I call upon Isis, the goddess and keeper of great wisdom, to help us as we open our minds to what is to come in this podcast and to all that we are meant to learn and relearn and remember. Sisters of shadow and flame, walk with us now. As we open our hearts to the beauty of the death portal, may we release fear and only remember love. May we see death not as darkness, but as the holy dawn of the soul's return. May every ending be blessed, every letting go be sacred, and every transition be honored as a passage home. We remember now, we are infinite, and so it is, and so it is, and so it is. So let's talk a little bit about the mystery of death as a portal. But first, let's think about something else for a moment. Let's talk about birth. Because when we speak about birth, we speak about joy, and we do it with anticipation and with celebration. We welcome a beautiful soul into form, into this beautiful, messy, miraculous human experience. We may shed tears, but they are tears of joy. And people come out to support us, to offer us help. My goodness, we have baby showers so that the new parents have, especially if it's their first, have what they need to set up, to get ready for this thing called birth. And now we even have sprinkle showers for people who have found out the sex of their babies beforehand. So maybe they had a boy or girl first, but now the second birth is the opposite sex. And so they don't have anything. So we have sprinkle showers to help them get ready for that. We celebrate with food, with music, with fun games, with stories. And there are balloons and cake, and it's so joyous. But what about death? What about death? For so many years, death has been taught to us as an ending, as some kind of punishment, something to be feared. And yet, in complete truth, death is the same portal as birth. It just happens in reverse. We shed the physical body. We let go of the weight of the world, and we surrender ourselves into the arms of the divine. We experience joy, love, light, compassion, gentleness, and kindness in a way that we could not fathom or hold in our human experience, because it's in its purest form. And death returns us to our innocence. Because as we are letting go of the weight of the world, we are also letting go of the traumas, of the false narratives, of the conditioned beliefs. And so when we die, we are not losing life. We are returning to it and to its purest form. Maybe we could even think about it as our soul's greatest exhale. And think about that for a moment, your soul's greatest exhale. Because in our human form, we are not able, or we may not have the capacity to really step into our purest form. We have moments of it, we have glimmers of it. We may get there through manifestation, through meditation, through sound healing, energetic healing, through being in circles with soul-aligned people. For being in ceremony or in ritual, we get glimpses of it. But can you imagine when we step through the death portal and we return to our purest form? It is not just a glimpse. It is not just a moment. It is eternal until our soul makes the decision to incarnate another time. But in our experience, we gather together. Sure, we are there to support one another in whatever ways we need. We cry, we go through the stages of grief, we go through the denial, we go through the anger, we go through the intense sadness and sorrow. And hopefully we come to a place of acceptance and peace. And yet there are so many people who don't allow themselves to get there. And yes, people surround us and we gather and we have food and there may be some laughter. And when we look back on memories, we're brought to tears of sadness because that person that we have lost is not here to celebrate that with us, to see more milestones, to experience more of our joy. And yes, that is sad. And then we fear our own death because we don't know what to expect. And if we think about the fact that we are surrendering into the arms of the divine, that we are returning to our purest form, that we get to feel never-ending, eternal joy, compassion, kindness, gentleness, happiness, pure health. I think that when we really take the time to reflect upon that, we can see that death is not something to be feared, that it is something to be celebrated. And I really like the new trend that seems to be happening, where people are moving into celebrations of life over just sitting around in the sorrow. Because our lives should be celebrated for all of our good moments, for all of the things that we've accomplished, and for what we have experienced, because every experience brings wisdom. And with this wisdom, it is also a deep, deep, deep remembering. A deep remembering from our ancestors, a deep remembering from other incarnations. And this remembering should be celebrated. We don't have to wait until death to see all of the wisdom, because we have the opportunity to get into that now. Because the wisdom that comes to us as we step through the death portal, it's a wisdom of divinity like no other. And we're not going to be reflecting upon everything that happened in our life. We are going to be in total joy with the wisdom of the divine. And I think that that is an amazing thing. And it's, when you think about it, it's kind of exciting. So I want to share with you some personal experiences that I have with this death portal. I've been at the bedsides of loved ones before. My adoptive mom passed beyond the veil in 2010. And I had the opportunity to sit with her in her last hours. She was supposed to come to my home on hospice, but She was much too fragile to move. And so I sat at her bedside and I sang to her and I prayed with her. And I did something that was so close to her heart. I read the Bible to her. I held her hand. And an amazing thing happened. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the sunlight came in through her hospital window. And it touched her feet. And over the next 2 hours, as I sang to her, as I prayed with her, as I read her Bible, I watched that light slowly travel up her body. And at the time, I really didn't put a lot of thought into it because I was so concentrated on giving her peace. But as I sang the last note of the final song that sent her home, the light that had traveled up her body left her head, hit the pedal, not the pedal, it hit the pillow, sorry about that, and she took her final breath. And what I've come to realize is that that was the light of the divine preparing my mom, my mommy, to step onto the other side of the veil. And when I think about that, I think about the beauty and the transformation that took place for her. Did I cry? Oh, yeah. Of course I cried. But I also think about what I was allowed to experience. And then in 2018, my birth mother passed away. She had been suffering from dementia, so we had her in memory care. But the last 2 weeks of her life, she was on hospice. She wasn't lucid. And she was just laying in her bed. She was no longer eating or drinking. And they had called us all to the nursing home, and we went to sit with her. And when I think about this part, I do get choked up because it was beautiful. My one sister-in-law had walked into the room, and she's like, "Do you smell that?" I'm like, "Smell what?" And I walked over towards her, and I could smell this beautiful floral perfume, and it sparked a memory inside of me. It was the perfume that my adoptive mom wore. And I realized that my adoptive mom was in the room to help my birth mom transition. And so we sat there and we gave my birth mom permission. And hospice told us, people don't usually let go because some of them don't want to die with their loved ones in the room. And so on some levels, I felt that because one of my older brothers, the younger of the two, I don't think my birth mom wanted to die in front of him because of their closeness. But we went out to lunch, we came back, and she held on. And she held on for another 2 weeks. But when we came back from lunch, we noticed that my birth mother's head was turned and focused up towards the left of her. And when I walked over to say, "Hey, we're back," I could smell my adoptive mom's perfume. And so I knew that she was still there. And I went to visit my birth mother every day, or practically every day, as she was transitioning. And it wasn't until the last few days that I smelled my adoptive mom's perfume again in the room. And when I smelled that again, I realized that this must be it. None of us were there when she passed, and I have a feeling that's the way she wanted it. And that is okay, because everybody chooses how they want to leave this world. But it amazes me that I didn't, still with all that I had experienced, I didn't see the beauty of what they were in because I was too involved in funeral preparations and my own grief. But, and this is the reason for this podcast, is this week I had this beautiful sacred honor of holding space for a woman who was preparing to cross the veil. She was a friend's mother, and I didn't know her. But she asked me over the weekend if I could come and do a sound bath and offer Reiki to her. And I said absolutely that I would be there because I wanted to do this for a friend. So she and her sister were there, and I did the sound bath, and I did the Reiki, and I watched as her mom relaxed. I watched as her mom became more peaceful. And we very quickly figured out which sound bowls were not to her liking and which ones brought her peace. And it was from the root to the heart chakra. And so I got to feel the essence of the angels that were in the room with us. And I got to watch as her beautiful heart light sent out so much love to her two daughters who were in the room. And I got to watch as these beautiful sparkles of gold and silver were around her and her daughters. And in my mind, the gold represents the masculine and the silver represents the feminine. And that combined with the heart light created this environment of peace, of comfort, of support. And as I was doing the Reiki, I started at her feet. And because of the sound bath, her chakras were in such a beautiful state. And as I worked my way up her body, I got to her heart and her head. And as I was up offering Reiki, at that point, she turned her head, she opened her eyes, and she smiled at me. And it was a smile of a deep knowing, of a deeper knowing, and a smile of gratitude. And the opportunity to offer this to another human being who is passing beyond the portal is such a gift. And it allowed me to really tap in deeper to what this portal is all about. And then today they asked if I would come back because hospice was pretty sure that this is it. Of course, we never know. If I would come back and pray and offer a blessing with her. So I got there and I gave hugs and we chatted for a little bit about end of life things that the family has to do. And then the two daughters, my friend's husband and her son, we all gathered at the bedside, and I stood at her mom's feet, and I offered a blessing. I called upon God, universe, spirit, guides, angels, and ancestors to be with us. And I do not remember anything that I said, so I won't even try. But what I do know is I could feel the thinning of the veil. I could feel that holy shift within her where her soul began to loosen its ties from this human form. It was like everything in the room changed. It became more ethereal. The air was shimmering. At least that's the way I'm feeling it. It was shimmering. It was a soft vibration. And her vibration became lighter, became softer, and it became more luminous. And it made me go into deep contemplation on my way home from this moment about what death really means for us. And, you know, in 2010 and 2018, when both of my moms passed beyond the veil, I wasn't yet spiritually awake enough to feel that sacredness of what was happening. In many ways, I was spiritually awake because I was very tapped in to the sacred. I was tapped into the divine, but it was through the filter of Catholicism. And so it was different. And my grief that I experienced with my two moms was because I thought they were gone. I thought they were gone. And yeah, there are times when I still feel them. I also feel my dad. He died in 1995, but that's a story for another time. But my grief was because my thought of them being gone. But now, after this experience this past week, now I know something different. I know that they simply went home. They simply went home to where all of our spirits and souls long to be. And one of the gifts that I received this week, being present for this recent transition, was like being allowed this beautiful glimpse of the divine. Not the idea of it, but the frequency of it. And that soft, light, luminous frequency of it is something that I truly believe I am going to carry forward with me. So what do we learn from all of this? You might be wondering, like, what's the wisdom in it? What's the lesson here? And I think back to something that I said in the beginning, you know, we celebrate birth because it brings life into the world. But what if We celebrated death for the same reason. Because death births the soul back into the infinite, back into the divine, into the ultimate sacredness. You know, and I've talked about before how holy means wholeness. This is the epitome of holiness. This is the epitome of our wholeness, of our soul back into the infinite. It is another birth. It's not a moment of an ending. It's a moment of true divine expansion. Can you feel that? Can you feel that deep within you? Because when I think about that, it sits with me in a different way. You know, each breath we take in this human body is a sacred act of remembering. And it's an act remembering that we are only visitors here. We chose this incarnation to learn, to love, to heal, to transmute, and to grow. And when those lessons are complete, we get to go home lighter, wiser, and freer than we were when we were birthed into this world. And people get those lessons at different points in their life. And people offer their healing to others at different points in their life. So when that is complete, we begin our journey back home to the infinite, to the divine. And so if we try to wrap our heads around that, if we try to imagine if we allowed ourselves to feel the joy of that transition instead of only the sorrow. Or if we gathered around the dying, not just to mourn their departure, but to bless their becoming. Can you even start to imagine how that would change our entire perspective on this idea of death? And that is the beauty of what I witnessed this week. I got to witness a becoming. I got to witness a becoming. You know, and they say that hindsight is always 20/20, right? And I think about what a gift it is to be with somebody when they are in their true becoming. And in many ways, some of the long-held grief that we hold inside of ourselves can lift. If we think about that transition, that portal as they're becoming. And I don't know about you, but I like that. It is so hopeful. It is so incredibly hopeful. And the other thing that came to my mind is that there is this beautiful sacred role that so many of us carry. It may be the reason, or one of the reasons, that we chose to incarnate in this existence. And that is as a priestess of the threshold. A priestess of the threshold. And I'm starting to wonder with this experience if that isn't yet part of my calling as a priestess of the threshold. Because those of us who carry this role, this sacred role, we walk with the souls that are at the edge of the worlds between this existence and the next. And we get to hold the vibration of peace, of love, and of remembrance. And when we hold that vibration of peace, of love, and of remembrance, it raises the vibration for everybody else in the room. And it helps their souls to connect in a different way. Sure, there's going to be tears. That is part of our normal human existence. And when I was given the honor of praying and giving a blessing to this beautiful woman who was transitioning, yes, there were tears and sniffles. And that is normal, and that is okay. We are allowed to feel our emotions. We are allowed to experience them because there are beauty in them. But when we can be the people that hold the vibration of peace, love, and remembrance in a room, it offers support and love and compassion and empathy to the people who are so close to the one who is nearing or in that death portal. And those of us who have been given this sacred role, we get to sing the songs of homecoming, whether it's through a sound bath or reiki or through our divine voices, through poetry. Whatever it is, we get to sing those songs. And we remind the soul that is inside of this person that is transitioning that it is safe to let go, that it is safe to release that physical form and step into the divine, into the infinite, to the expansion of that. And in doing all of these things, we're transformed too. We are transformed in a way that we never expected to be transformed. Because let me tell you, when you've stood in the veil, like I got to do this week, and when you've felt that love, that infinite, divine love, you know that there is nothing to fear, that there is only love. There is only love. And it changes you. You know, and being in this experience this week, we are still in the season of Samhain, depending on how you celebrate it, whether you celebrate it on the 31st or you do it for lunar or solar Samhain, right? This Samhain portal is open until around November the 19th. And what a beautiful time to pass, because your ancestors are there to greet you in a way that maybe is easier for the person who is transitioning. I don't know, but That's my belief. So some things I want you to think about, and I'll put these in the show notes, but I wrote down a couple of questions. So the first one is, what have I been fearing to let die in my own life? What have I been fearing to let die in my own life? Because we experience deaths all the time. It's not just a transition or a transformation from the physical world to beyond the veil. We have things within us that we need to allow to die so that we can step into our own expansion. So what have you been fearing to let die in your own life? Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe it's a false narrative. Maybe it's something that controlled you, like an addiction, because we don't know what's on the other side. And so we have that fear, because even though we know that thing wasn't good for us, we still hold on to it because we know what to expect. And to let it go puts us in a place of uncertainty. But if we can think about what I've talked about today, about the vibration of peace, love, and remembrance, about allowing our soul to remember that it is safe to let go of something, about remembering divine infinite love, it becomes easier to let that thing die. Another question that I wrote down when I was musing was, what am I being asked to release so that something new can be born? What am I being asked to release so that something new can be born? And it's the same but different than the first question. Because when we release something, if we really step into that portal of releasing and we allow ourselves to move through it more, there becomes this transmutation that allows a rebirth to take place. And releasing something without having something in its place to fill that spot leaves a hole. And when we leave a hole, we look for something to fill it. And so we fall back into the false narratives, into the addictions, into the old habits and patterns. But if we release it and transmute it and allow that transmutation of light and divine energy to expand within us and allow us to see the possibilities of what can be, that rebirth that we now step into is amazing. And a third question that I had for you is, can I honor death? Can I honor the death of a season, a version of myself, a chapter of myself? Can I honor that as a sacred passage, not as an ending? Because when we honor it, when we say, this was the season of my life where this, and this happened, or this was the version of me where I carried all of these things, or this was the chapter of my life when I sat in depression, when I sat in loss, when I sat in fear, when I sat in shame. See, all of those things are also portals that give us so much wisdom, so much knowledge. So if we look at those now as something sacred, a sacred passage, it's no longer an ending, it's a rebirth, it's a beginning. Because death is going to walk with us every day, every sunset, every full moon. You can look outside depending on when you're listening to this. As I look outside my windows, I see trees that no longer have leaves on them. So there's a death taking place. You know, my flowers, some of my flowers, like my little, oh gosh, chrysanthemums? I can never remember. They're the little orange flowers. I'll remember after I'm done recording this. Those are pretty hardy and they're still around. But when I look outside, you know, my roses don't have any blooms. None of my other flowers have any blooms on them. So that, or if we think about every exhale we have as a small death, because sometimes with every exhale, especially if it's an intentional exhale, we are releasing tension from ourselves. We are releasing some anxiety. We are releasing some heaviness from us. So if we looked at that in a different way and we looked at it as a small rebirth, everything changes. Because we know that as the sun sets, it's going to rise the next day. And we know that with every full moon, it's going to wane until we get a new moon. And we know that after every exhale, we get to inhale again. So it's a small rebirth. And if we look at it and honor it in that way, it changes everything. Because when we fear death, we fear change. Think about that. When we fear death, we fear change. And change is necessary for our transformation. It's necessary for our ascension. Change is necessary to continue our journey. Change is necessary for us to step into who we incarnated to truly be. But when we honor death, we begin to trust in the eternal rhythm of life itself. And it reminds me of the seasons that we have outside in our world. You know, yeah, we're in fall. And in autumn, the leaves change colors because they're transitioning and they fall off the trees and they crunch under our feet and our kids play in them and they have fun, and all of the beautiful foliage and flowers that we looked at, they are in transition because autumn is a transition. But then we move into winter, and winter is this time when we cocoon, when we allow ourselves to go into the heart and soul and darkness of Mama Gaia, the great mother. And we allow our roots to get stronger. We allow our souls to get stronger. We allow ourselves to get stronger, because it's a time to really go deep and do that shadow work. And then we move into spring, and spring brings about hope. Spring is when we start planting the seeds, whether it's the seeds of our intentions, the seeds of what we want to see for our life, the seeds of our manifestations, or the seeds that we put in the ground for the flowers that we grow and the crops that we grow. It is a season of hope, of being hopeful. And summer is that time of being in full bloom, you know, between Spring and summer, we celebrate that rebirth. We celebrate the rebirth. You walk outside in the spring and summer and you see baby birds and baby squirrels and baby bunnies. You know, there's so much birth taking place, and the summertime is our full blooming era. It is that time for us to show our complete and total brightness. So everything is cyclical. Everything is cyclical. Oh, my beloveds, I really enjoyed this episode and sharing my thoughts about death being a portal into something so much more beautiful. It has been such a journey for me just in 1 week, and I wanted to share that journey with you. And if you love this episode, share it with somebody else who needs this message, who needs to hear this. Maybe it's somebody who is in transition themselves that needs that glimmer of hope. Maybe it's somebody who is watching a loved one move through this portal to death or the rebirth of the soul. Maybe it is somebody you share it with who has recently lost a loved one, to give them hope. Maybe it's something that you come back to again and again to remind yourself, to help you remember. But sharing it with other people is a beautiful gift that we can give to one another. So like this podcast, leave a review, leave a comment. You know, you can find me on Instagram at Serene Wellness with Paula, or you can find me on TikTok at Serene Paula. And I would love to hear your comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear where you're at on this topic of death. Where do you sit with it? Where would you like to sit with it? How would you like to change your perspective? I would love to hear all of that. And I would like to close with a little blessing. So if you want to gently shut down your eyes again, and you can place your hands over your heart if you'd like. May you remember, beloved one, that death is not the enemy. It's the great return. And when your time comes, may you be surrounded by light, by song, and by the hands of love. And until then, may you live fully, deeply. May you live courageously. May you learn to honor every ending as a beautiful beginning, and every goodbye as a return to the heart of the divine. And so until next time, my beloveds, farewell from now. So much love for all of you.